Today's Mercedes-Benz interview of the day is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz EV, the fully electric EQS sedan from Mercedes-Benz. It's innovation on a magnificent scale. The vehicle all electric, the feeling is all Mercedes. Learn more at MBUSA.com/EQS. He's one of the great shooters in the history of the NBA. So good that he once said that he could beat me left-handed from three-point range, and he's right-handed. It's Tim Legler, the NBA three-point shooting contest champ in 1996. Do you remember when you said that, Legs?
I do, vividly, and I still feel very strongly about that. By the way, real quick, I love this topic about the estate planning.
Yeah.
Because it's funny, because I've recently had conversation, not necessarily meet with an estate planner, but just kind of going through the Rolodex in my head, like who I want to be a pallbearer, who I want to speak that I think would do my life justice, right? Because my mom passed away last summer. I delivered the eulogy. It was a Catholic mass, and they were kind of pretty strict on, we don't want multiple speakers. So I was like the one guy that got up there and had a chance to do that. And I'm telling you right now, when I go, I want as many people that want to speak about me, they can. I don't care if we're there for 3 or 4 days. I want anybody who's got something nice to say about me to have a chance to do so and honor me the right way, Dan.
Okay, if you could pick some people maybe that you played with or against who could be your pallbearers, who would you use?
Oh, man, that's a great one. Well, I would definitely have Calbert Chaney on there. Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah, former Indiana great.
And probably my favorite teammate I had as a pro, just a consummate professional. I'd have some randos that probably you'd be kind of surprised about. Brent Price would be in there. I'd have Brent Price in there.
Okay.
Jim McIlvaine. So I'm going back to my Washington
7-footer. Yeah. Big
absolutely.
Man. Yeah.
I'd have him in there. Who else would I have in there? Chris Webber would probably get a call.
Okay.
And he's got great hands too, which is important in something like that. Softest set of hands I've ever seen. I want him kind of like running point on that operation.
All right, let me start with the play-in games. And this circulated yesterday. I don't know if actual former NBA players or NBA writers are suggesting this, but it came out that the Lakers should somehow tank tonight against the Pelicans to avoid then moving on and facing the Denver Nuggets. And my logic, my suggestion to this stupid suggestion was, you're going to eventually have to run into Denver. I'd rather face Denver now than I would later. And then let's say you lose. Now you face the Warriors, who have won 10 of their last 12 and 3 straight against you. Or Sacramento. Sacramento's beaten you 5 times in a row. How did we get to this point that the Lakers should somehow tank tonight to avoid facing the Nuggets the next round?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I was part of those conversations yesterday, and I took the opposite approach as you did. I just don't buy into it. I think competitive integrity says you go out there and you try to win. Like, I understand if it so happens that the Lakers were to lose the game, and then you assume they win the next game against the winner of the Golden State Sacramento game, which I think is a reach because of what you just said, the success those two teams have had against the Lakers this year. But let's just say you go ahead and make that leap, and now they're in. There's no doubt that it's a better series for them to play Oklahoma City than Denver. Like, there's no denying that. And that's where the basis of this comes from. And also this dire need that some people have for the Lakers to continue to play on. Like, how are we going to survive if the Lakers aren't continuing to play? I've actually made jokes, Dan, that once they're eliminated, whenever that may be, let's say they don't make the playoffs, they lose in the play-in 2 games. Let's just say that happens. I said we'd be 3 games into the first round of the actual playoffs. And one of the questions I would get asked on the air, I guarantee you, is how do you think the Lakers would be doing right now if they were still alive? Like, this is the mentality. I think that's what it is more than anything. It's inconceivable to people to think we're going to have a postseason without LeBron in it. So let's figure out the best way to ensure that they have a longer run. And that's avoid Denver as long as you can. Obviously, I'm fully against it. I think, number one, you're putting yourself in a precarious situation because then you're in a 1-game situation to go home for the summer against either Golden State or Sacramento. Okay. And now you don't even get to participate in the postseason. If you put yourself intentionally in that situation, a rolled ankle, Anthony Davis gets another back spasm, somebody has a bad shooting night, foul trouble, anything can happen in a 1-game situation to prevent you from even getting a shot at the Denver Nuggets. So I'm fully against it. I don't think the Lakers are going to buy into it.
Yeah, but
they're
how could
to
you
win tonight? They're going to win.
Tim, you would be throwing a game.
Correct.
Cleveland did this at the end of the regular season.
Yes.
They pulled their best players because they wanted to set up a better matchup in the postseason.
Yes.
I mean, you can't. How do you manipulate a game like this without drawing attention from the commissioner?
You can't. The league would come down heavy. And here's the other thing, Dan, no one's raised the prospect. What if New Orleans had the same idea? So what do we got tonight? We got a bunch of backups playing each other in a playoff game? Like, this is what we're going to do. The league would come down with a heavy hammer if that were the case. Now, we'll say this. At the end of the regular season, if you know that you're going to be one of those top 6 teams, like you're in a playoff series, you already know that. You see it all the time. It's going on for decades. Manipulation of players to try to affect who you would play. But at least you know you're going to have a 7-game series against somebody. This is totally different. This would be literally putting your season in the hands of one game, one night. Do we get to move on? Because that's what you'd be left with. Winner goes, loser goes home if you ended up playing the winner of the 9-10 in that situation. So I just don't think the Lakers want to bring themselves to the precipice of going home for the summer. Take your shot at the Nuggets, win the game tonight, take your shot at the Denver Nuggets. You've got LeBron James and Anthony Davis. That the psyche of those two players, particularly LeBron, shouldn't be to duck anybody. Go play them. And yeah, you'll probably lose that series, as will every team probably in the Western Conference that sees them.
Do you have an MVP vote?
I don't have an official vote. No, I think actually years ago, it kind of meant more to me, I think, because I believe there are a lot of people that vote, Dan, that I don't think are watching games. And I'm kind of going, wow, and they get a vote to affect something that important. Now, I'm actually watching the games. I think it's kind of diluted. But no, to answer your question, no. I just give my strong opinions on it, but I don't actually cast one.
And I felt that there was a push from Kendrick Perkins to prevent Joker from winning a 3rd MVP last year. And he said this kind of late in the game, like, oh, my God, basically, this guy can't join Larry Bird and some of the other players who won 3 MVPs. And then he goes out and they give it to Embiid, and Embiid was wonderful. Joker wins an NBA title. Now we're getting the late push that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they're the number 1 seed. He should get, maybe he's the MVP. I keep saying, I know we get tired of stories, and nobody... we run out of things to say about the Joker. He's still the best player in the game. He's still the most valuable player in the game. Why is there this late push for maybe Anthony Edwards? I mean, Luka, you can put him in there as well. It just seems like Joker is the MVP again, like it or not.
Yeah, he'd get my vote. It'd be very close. I actually think if Dallas had another 10 games to play, I think Luka could have run him down in the home stretch because Dallas has been unbelievable since they made their acquisitions at the trading deadline. Luka's had the best individual season of any player in the league. You can't argue it. He's created more offense between scoring and facilitating any player in history. It's the best individual season in the league, no question about it. But when you have another really viable candidate, and it's close, which obviously Joker is in that category, it's hard to dismiss the win gap between the two teams. It just is. It's hard to dismiss that. That's why I say if Dallas could have played 10 more games, they may shrink that gap to 2 or 3. Now it's a toss-up in terms of the winning. Now I think Luka's had a better year, and it would be him, but I don't think he quite was able to run him down. So I think Jokic is going to win his 3rd in 4 years.
Yeah, I agree with you with Luka, but it's almost, and we liken Luka to Josh Allen in the NFL. Like, we keep waiting for him to take that next step. And maybe this is the year, and he's relatively young, but it's quick how we kind of move on. Like Jason Tatum, like certain guys, we're like, let's move on to the next guy. We're waiting. Yeah. Anthony Edwards is here and Shai Gilgeous. Jason Tatum's still a wonderful player, but it's like you got your window to capture our imagination. And then if you don't capitalize, we're like, all right, let's talk about Victor Wembanyama.
There's listen, you're 100% right. There's no doubt that's what happened. And actually what happened with Jokic, if he were to win it again, there aren't a lot of examples historically where, you get that hot name, you win a couple, which he did, and then they go in a different direction, the voters, and then you come back and get another one. Like, it's hard to do that. Once they've kind of moved on, it's hard to do that. But I think what helped him clearly was Embiid going down. Embiid at the time he got hurt was, I think he had it in his grasp to win back-to-back MVPs. And I think Philadelphia would have been within striking distance of the Celtics. They would have been the 2 seed in the East. They would have been, the Celtics won, 64 games? They would have probably been upper 50s, 58, 59. There wouldn't have been the gap you have now between them and the Knicks. The Sixers would have been in there if he didn't get hurt. And with what he was doing statistically, I think Embiid had a great chance to win it. Once he went down, it opened it all up for everyone again. And that's when I think you got back to the appreciation of what this guy is doing every single night. And so I think he's going to win it. I don't know who's going to finish second between Luka and Shai. I think Shai's going to get a lot of votes because it's such a young team. No one expected them to be the 1 seed in the West. That deserves a lot of credit when you're a 30-point scorer. It's driven around you. For me personally, it would be Luka 2, Shai 3, and then actually my 4th guy would be Brunson. I think Brunson deserves to be on the ballot. Like, you're going to vote for 5 people. His name's going to be written in there to some extent, where when you add up the totality of the points, he's got a great shot, I think, to finish 4th. He and Giannis probably 4 and 5, round out that 5.
Tim Legler, the former three-point shooting contest champ and an analyst with the mothership. Also, you know, LeBron hasn't won an MVP in over a decade.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You know, they kind of like, we moved on. We take him for granted.
4 and 5 years, I believe, and then that was a wrap on that, and you move on. I always describe the guys that are in line as being at like the counter, the deli counter at the grocery store, right? Where you take your number and you kind of stand there and wait for your order, because it's eventually those guys are going to get MVP consideration or win one. And you start checking the list. Okay, who doesn't have one yet? Okay, now he's got one. And there's always like this core group of young players like Tatum. You would expect has to get one. The problem is, it's so weird, is he's been in the running the last 3 years. Now what happened was they made their team so good it actually hurts his chances. That's how bizarre the whole thing is. Like, well, you have that much help, of course you're not going to get MVP votes when he's exactly the same player. But because of the help around him and the emergence of Jaylen Brown is playing his best, now they go, well, now you can't win it. Like, I don't think Tatum finishes in the top 5. And they have the best record in the league, and he's been in the top 5 multiple times. But this year he won't, despite the fact it's his best team. Like, that's kind of the logic behind it. Embiid was on that list, got his. So I don't know if he'll get another one. And then with the injuries and everything else, Luka, obviously, it's going to be his turn eventually. He's going to get one. So there's guys in the waiting, and once they get it, you kind of move on from the guy that's the perennial winner. And that's eventually going to happen to Jokic, but I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Victor Wembanyama, if you didn't get him now, you're not going to get him, because it just feels like they got to make that roster better. I don't think he had a great point guard, and to get him, like, he's still kind of learning positioning. Like, where am I supposed to be? And that's what struck me when I would watch him. There were times where he was muscled out of the way, or he got lost. He just, and then all of a sudden it started to click with him. First of all, what's San Antonio do to make him better next year? And do you agree that, as he said, hey, I've only shown you 50%?
No question about it. The league's in trouble. The league is in trouble. And I agree with you. And so obviously you didn't have a reason to watch the Spurs except for him. So as the season's going on, I'm covering the whole league. I'm watching other teams that are more relevant to the postseason, but I'd always make sure I got one Spurs game in a week, because I wanted to see the progression. And I agree with you, the beginning of the year, first 20 games at least, he didn't really have a purpose offensively. He kind of drifted around. He spent way more time on the perimeter than he did anywhere near the paint. They didn't run anything for him. By design, Greg Popovich wanted to deflect all pressure away from him. Like, we're not going to come down and run ISOs for this guy when he's not physically strong enough or has the confidence yet to operate, because he's going to look bad. And we're going to deflect that, so we don't care how many games we win. And that's the approach they took. And as a result, you win, 15 games, whatever it is. So that's the approach they took. But as you watched him, each month, even if you watched him once, say, wow, now he's running the floor and he's getting a guy on his back and he's turning and sealing that guy and putting his arm up and he's holding his position and demanding the basketball. Look at the way now he's handling the ball in traffic, which was something we saw on film against weak competition before he came to the league. And then early on, it was like, wow, that's a steal. That's a deflection. That's a strip. Now, not so much. He can operate as a guy 7'4", handling the ball like that, and it looks amazing. He's shooting turnaround jumpers in the post over people, big guys, and he's having no hesitation whatsoever. his defensive presence and the ground he covers is unique unto him. He makes plays every night defensively that he's the only player in the league that can make that particular play. So when you look at the totality of it, the league's in trouble with a guy that does this many things well at this size. Now, to your point, what do they need to add? You're 100% right, Dan. You've got to go out and get a veteran, accomplished point guard. Someone to set the table, put guys in position, give him the ball in easier places to succeed. They didn't really have that. They got a couple of nice young wings that I like that can score. They don't have that leadership at the point guard position. Everybody thought Fred VanVleet had an opportunity to end up there last year. That would have been a tremendous acquisition for Wemby. He ended up in Houston. So now they'll hit this summer and they'll continue to look, because that's something you need to do to help him max out and get where he needs to be to help you contend sooner rather than later.
Could you outshoot Caitlin Clark right now?
I think right now, no, I don't think I could. I don't think I could. As we sit now, you give me a month to prepare, I'll take a run at her.
Okay.
I don't shoot a lot anymore. No, she's amazing. She totally captivated me. This might be, I don't know if you think I'm nuts. I have these conversations with people in terms of sheer entertainment value for me to watch basketball players. I think she might have cracked my top 5 all time, and that's men or women.
All time.
Yes. I'm going MJ's in that category. Steph Curry is in that category. Caitlin Clark is in there. Believe it or not, I got a random one. Russell Westbrook was in that category for me for about a 5-year stretch. With Durant and then right after Durant, because of his relentlessness, I just was so enamored with a guy that played that hard and was that productive. So Westbrook, for me, I didn't miss a Russell Westbrook game. And Caitlin Clark goes in there, man. And Larry Bird will be the other guy. That's my 5. And yeah, I could watch Caitlin Clark every single night play basketball. I'm not fascinated with her mind, her toughness, obviously her shooting ability, but it's just, I think it's her IQ and her mental toughness, because she's a target every night and she doesn't allow it to get her off her game. And I have so much respect for that.
It's like Jason Kidd with a jumper. She runs the floor. She knows the floor. She finds people. And
telling you.
You can't leave her open, even when you're not leaving her open. I would probably put Magic in there over Russell
Magic's
Westbrook.
right there for me, too. It's tough. It's tough. You start really narrowing it down.
But that's saying a lot, though,
people.
that you're putting her in the top 5 all-time basketball entertainers.
Oh, yeah. Sign me up. Now I'm at this point, I'm going to be catching as many of those games as I can. I'll tape them. I'll watch them. I did her last couple of years in Iowa. I'm going to do the same thing when she's a pro. Her passing ability alone guarantees her success at the next level. Even if you don't see as many displays, and you clearly won't as you had at Iowa when she was playing with inferior players, and she could take whatever shot she wanted, whenever she wanted. Different in the WNBA. All those girls can play. All of them can score. And she's going to be a target of defenses to limit it. You're not going to see those types of numbers at Iowa, clearly. But you know what she is going to do? Make every single one of her teammates a better basketball player, because they're rewarded, because she sees things before anyone else does. And that's why, even if she's an 18-point scorer, a 20-point, whatever it may be, she caps out at the WNBA, she's going to be a double-digit assist type of player with that dual threat is going to make her one of the best in the league pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. I think people are going to go, wow, she's only scoring this amount, but she does have talented scorers on the team. And I think that she'll ingratiate herself by being that pass first. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Even if there's people in that, because I think she got a lot of unfair resentment. It's really strange what happened with her, where just by your own success and greatness, you become a target of resentment and jealousy. It was a weird thing to watch. Yeah. And I felt actually some empathy for her going through that. And it's going to be even worse at the WNBA level, man. Day one, they're coming for her. There's no question about it. But the difference is now every single person that's around her is going to support her in that locker room. Now, even day one, if you got a problem with her because you're jealous and you're lacing up for that first day of practice and you're looking over like, oh, this girl getting all this attention's made all this money already, I got news for you. That'll go away about an hour into your first practice when you get hit in the side of the face with a basketball and a back cut and you didn't even know you were open. And you go, wow, okay, this girl's really fun to play with. She's going to find me when I'm open. Her passing guarantees success at the next level.
Let's talk again in the playoffs. Always great to talk to you, Legs. Thank you.
Yeah, love to, Dan.
That's Tim Legler from the Mothership. Take a break. Back after this.